I did too, and um, after it worked both times. We had stuff happening.
Hmm.
You know, lights would go off, and we just had weird stuff happening. I didn't play with the Ouija board. Um, I've always heard bad. You only get negative. At that time, I know now they're all negative, but it's usually really bad. So I didn't ever play with the Ouija board, but we did a couple of seances. After that, eventually my mother kind of got hold of me, and she's like, "Look, you can't just, you need to come back home." So I mean, I was gonna, I stayed. I was still actually, we're still working at the nursing home at that point. And she was, my mother was the director of nurses at the nursing home. So oddly enough, as terrible as our home relationship was, that stopped at the front door. I worked at that nursing home for 3.5 years. Never had a problem. Like our problem, our problems only were outside that door in the workplace. Like I said, I was living somewhere else, and we no one would have ever known that we weren't a normal kind of family. So I was still working for it at the nursing home. I love that job, by the way. Um, so yeah, she calls, and she's like, "You need to come." She asked me to come back home, so I came back home. Uh, we got to talking, and I was like, and I can't remember what point I kind of thought about it, but I was like, I was, I told her, I was like, I'd be in, maybe I think I was like, I think I'd really like to maybe be a mortician. So we looked it up, and there's a Commonwealth Institute of Funeral Service in Houston, and so that's where I went. So at some point, this was before my father killed himself. Um, I don't remember this happening, but my mother told me, she mentioned it one time, like she said that she went to kiss me goodnight one night, and I like grabbed her head and just like full on French kissed her, and she's like, "Yo, what?" She's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, I didn't know what was going on, and I said, what's, and she's like, why do you kiss mommy like that? And she said, well, Trey. So, yeah. So apparently, and I have, like I said, I have no memory of this, but I kind of have some flashbacks, some weird what I thought were, yeah. So apparently there was some, at the very least, that there was some, like, inappropriate contact with my, and she was my, when my mother let, I don't know if she left him or he left her, but when they divorced, and his new wife, that was his wife. um there was inappropriate uh contact going on.
Who were the parties involved?
Myself and my father's new wife. It was before he was killed, so I, like, real little kid. I was told about that, and then because I had that, I really don't want to get too graphic about it, but I would have, like, what I thought it was like a fantasy, but like, why, I never, it just kind of would pop up every now and then, and I was like, why would it just seemed real weird, and then I just kind of backburnered it until I don't even know how that conversation came up with her, but my mother she's like, yeah, well, one time you just French kissed me when you were a little kid, and I was like, what? Started going to mortuary school, and Houston's a party town, a lot of, a lot of stuff to get into up there. Uh, like I had throughout high school, I kind of, as I got into stuff, I kind of started, you know, not yeah, I guess maybe questioning my sexuality, or I definitely wanted to like try stuff and get just maybe experiment, you know, experiment with other things. When I got to Houston, you know, it's kind of there's they got the gay areas of town and everything, and
Right, right.
so I graduated mortuary school and I got an apprenticeship. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't skip this because there's more little stuff. Um, got an apprenticeship with a mortuary. Well, I can't give too much. Got an apprenticeship. Um, I did, and I started it. And I gotta think. I don't think anyone that I know is from that place is actually ever going to see this. Mm, yeah, an incident happened with that. Um, yeah, I can't say too much about it. Um, but there was an incident, and I almost got there. I almost got licensed. I didn't quite. There were some slow months. Like I said, there's that rule. You can only have. You couldn't have 3 months consecutively without and have a no cases. No, they call it it's a no. It's a no something. It just means that you didn't have any cases that month. Well, it hit, and you know so I didn't make it, and then they sent they're like this. So there was an offer. There was an offer made, and to forge it, if I there was an offer to forge it, if there was an offer to
And
do it, and I turned it down, and I quit.
if I may ask, to forge, like, like how would you forge what?
Um, say give me credit for cases that I actually didn't do.
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha. Okay.
So there was a deal. Um,
And
yeah,
why did you turn it? And why did you turn it down?
um, because I'd felt like at that point that my whole life was pretty much fake, and I know like because I had to like hide so much, and I bet like I said I hid everything the whole time. I had to hide everything, and I felt like my whole life was fake, and I wanted something real. That became really a driving force. Like I wanted one thing in my life to be something real,
Hmm.
and I wanted to earn it. Like I mean, I earned all the other stuff, but it didn't feel real. If that's the best way I can explain it. But I just I did it did high school didn't feel real. Um, it just didn't feel real. I wanted to accomplish something, and it be real.
Hmm.
So and I couldn't tell. I gotta watch what I say. There, I didn't tell anyone the real reason why I quit. I just quit, and I wouldn't tell nobody what happened. But I just had to make up a stupid excuse, and then I thought I'd get pressed on it, but I didn't. Everyone was just like, "Oh." Eventually, my half brother did. He did ask me later, and I did tell him what really happened, but I didn't tell any. I didn't tell. I didn't talk about that. I would say more. I'm not. I just that could potentially get people in trouble. So um, I felt like I wouldn't be believed. Um, the like if a situation happens with rich and respected people, and you're not rich and respected. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes. Definitely.
Like, it's like that. Like, I didn't think anyone would believe me or listen or anything like that. So I just made up a stupid excuse and left. Another depression. I was, it's just, I couldn't tell. I couldn't, I couldn't, I went through, that was a hard thing to go through. Um, again, here we are. Can't tell no one. Again, it's a common thing during all this stuff. It's like you never really had. You're just kind of have to go. You're going through all this stuff. You're just going through it. So here comes the friend. Um, hey man. We talked about doing different drugs. You want to try some. You want to try ice, and that's for people that crystal meth. And I'm like, at this point, like, yeah, why not? You know, well, that started a thing. I said that was the introduction to that.
Mm-hmm.
I found it was kind of hard to get for a while, but when it became, there was a time period like where I don't know the years, but there was a time period where there's in the with drugs, like there's time periods and areas where you can get certain things and you can't get certain things. Well, like there was a ecstasy boom, so that was pretty much, that's all we did. And then, but when crystal hit the streets, you couldn't get any more ecstasy. So like really all you could get is weed, crystal meth, or cocaine. And I'm not a fan of. I never was a fan of cocaine. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So that only that when you I kind of I mentioned I was an insomniac. So I did like a Xanax. I'd get the four bars, and so I could get some sleep that way. I didn't have to stay up 5 or 6 days and crash. I could take a little. I could even take like a half a bar, not a half a bar, but it's a 4/4. It's a 4 sections. Take half of a quarter, and it knocked you straight out. So, but then when meth hit, because it's such an upper, then all the people that had Xanax were hoarding it for themselves. So you know, so then like at that when we were just up all the time, because I was already insomniac, and all you could get was uppers. So so that that kind of started, and I would go back and forth between that and pills, and then that's when sister comes into the picture. My mother was worried about me because I was reclusive and not going anywhere, and I was angry all the time, and she's like, hey, if you would you go out to the you know these folks go out to the bar, would you go with them? And I was like, yeah, I'll go with them. So that was sister. That's how we that's how we met.
Okay. No problem. Okay, so that's when you met. All right.
Yeah, and this would be like as things progress, like the she knew she knew a lot more about witchcraft, and had actually done it. So that's where all the rest of it came from. But we had a grove, and and the trees, and I guess yeah, we did get into it, man. I didn't. Now that I'm saying it, yeah, we did quite a bit of witchcraft.
Mm.
And we had we had spirit animals, stone carvings, and crystals, and all that stuff. Yeah.
did you enjoy it, or did you get addicted to it, or was it
Like, okay, yeah, actually, it is enjoyable in a because like it is kind of seductive and addictive because like if your church is dead, if you're in any kind of religion and it's just dead and there's no power, if you ever try witchcraft, it's got power. It's gonna hook you because when you do spells with intent, like it works. There's power in witchcraft. So like unlike a dead religion, all that fake stuff does not have spiritual power. Witchcraft does have spiritual power.
okay?
So
So, oh, sorry,
yeah,
my bad. Sorry.
no, so it is addictive in that sense.
So power, as in like it's able to manifest a
Yeah,
internal like. Okay,
yeah, external too, like
okay.
yeah,
Okay,
depending like
yeah. Clarify. Like elaborate.
there's some people are more apt. Some people's magic it's stronger than other people's.
Hmm.
Like I guess yeah, I guess now I think I guess it's bloodlines, but some people have it's effective for everyone who does it, but when some people does it, it's really more. So it really just depends. But when the spirits come, like it's a whole experience. Like if you haven't experienced like the Holy Spirit, like if you've never had anything like that, then yeah, witchcraft is going to really blow your mind. It works.
And so with witchcraft, is it like it mimics the Holy Spirit? Would you agree with that, or just
There is yeah. I guess the closest thing I could think of to that would be like um, yeah, there is a false Holy Spirit. They do it. They do. There's a lot. Yeah, there's some in Christian churches, um, but also in like your Santeria and your voodoo. They go into the trances and they sometimes they inflict cuts and pricks and they're yeah they're basically a deep channeling a demon. There was another friend of mine that I kind of ran with a little bit. She was probably a little more into witchcraft than I realized at first. She would kind of every now and then she would come do some rituals with us. It was mainly like protection spells, and like I said, we didn't really get into the dark stuff, but we did some money spells and protection spells. And I'm trying to
mm,
think, is there, we the things with our power animals or something like that, which but we'll get to that.
now
So yeah, huh?
with spells? How does the function of a spell work? And like, is there always like a specific phrase to say? Like, for example, we say Heavenly Father or Our Father. Like, we always start with that in our prayer, right? So,
Right.
how does it work in the
Well, well,
realm?
which there honestly, like it's kind of loose in the sense that um, like most people that I've heard talk about it, they kind of write their own spells. Um, it really doesn't like you've got your basic format. There's you have your whatever symbols you're going to use to draw whatever. There's power symbols. There's you got your circles and your offerings, uh, crystals and stuff like placed in a particular arrangement, for example, would draw like more energy if depending on what you're trying to do. So like there's things like that. So there's kind of like an overall formula, but there's a lot of leeway, like you can make it very personal. So it's not as rigid as a lot of there's a lot of leeway with it. That's why you have different That's why Wicca doesn't look like voodoo, doesn't look like, that it, there's, you know, it's
Okay.
very fairly open.
Okay. And
Now
so,
I don't know about like the high level stuff, where you get into, human sacrifice and all this. That might not be, but the low level stuff's open.
and so you say high level. So I guess you weren't considered a high level.
Oh, no, 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 no. I wasn't initiated into anything like that. Like, yeah, you're talking, uh, 32nd plus degree Mason. You're talking, your grand occultists. Like they'd be working for the government, like that Marina Abramovic that does all the blood rituals for the. You're talking about like that they're in orders in well known societies. The celebrities. That the ones that teach all the celebrities and make the devil deals. You got to be in real deep. That's the high level.
Oh, okay. So you just did. I guess you would consider basic stuff.
They don't even, initiates don't even consider self practicing witches. They don't even consider you a witch.
Hmm.
You're basically just like a kid playing.
Okay. Okay. So I never knew that. Okay.
Yeah, there's levels to it. So a lot of the people that they're like, oh, I'm a witch. No, you're not initiated. You don't have, like I said, those things, they're everywhere, and like they're over cities and stuff like that. You're talking about that high level stuff. They don't even, they're just like, oh, those are kids playing. That's their attitude.
Okay. And um, and so for you now, like being in this, was it hard to leave?
Um, no, kind of jumping back to high school. I forgot to mention, like there were times I would black out and not like have a seizure, like just I would black out and then I would be somewhere else doing something else, completely functional. No one, no one even. And this is what bothered me the most. What bothered me the most about it is that nobody noticed anything weird. Um, it happened 4 or 5 times in high school. Uh, the last time it happened, I blacked out and went through 2 periods in school, took a test, and drove home. And I blacked out in algebra, like the I kind of, I was failing the class, and I was asking the teacher to help me, and she's sitting there filing her nails and playing around. I mean, I was almost going to fail the class, and I mean, I had ulcers in my mouth. I'm real bad with numbers, so I was desperate to get some help. And I get up there, and and she brushed me. She's like, I'm not gonna, like, that's not my problem. So, and I snapped, and I took my hand and I just swiped her whole desk off, and then I slammed my hands down and just put my face right there. And I told her, I said, look, I said, I'm just asking you to do 2 problems. All I'm asking you to do is do 2 problems, so I can have the tutor that we're paying $200 a week to do your job, do it. You're gonna do this. I said, because I promise you that, I said, if I fail, I said, you're gonna regret it. You know, and I sat down, and I remember I stabbed my paper and I started drawing pentagrams. And that's the last thing I remember. Last thing I remember. This is the worst blackout. It wasn't the only one, but this was the worst one. That was like sixth period. We have 8. So I finished that class, went to another class, took a test and passed it. And when the last thing I came to in my driveway white knuckling the steering wheel. Like I was locked up on it, and I finally I let it go. My hands were cramped, and I'm sitting there in the driveway. I had no memory from the time I started drawing the pentagrams to the time that I woke up at home. I had no idea what happened. I no memory whatsoever. And I started asking. I had to ask around. I was like, "Hey, did anything happen yesterday?" And my friend, he caught on pretty quick. She's like, "Why?" Because I was like, "Hey, was I doing anything weird that yesterday?" And I kept asking questions because I was just I was terrified that something had happened and I didn't know about it. Like I could have robbed a bank, or I had no, like, absolutely no memory. Uh, and she's like, "Why do you keep asking that?" She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yep, no, no," because to this day I do not know what happened during that time period. But I did 2 periods, took a test, and drove home in a complete blackout. And I was talking to people, and nobody had any clue that anything was going on. No one ever caught it.
Mm.
So
Blackouts you were experiencing.
mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, not like I said, not like blackout. Your fault. You wake up in the floor. Like, no, something was in there. Something was driving. I was going. I'm trying to think. Can I say what I want? All
Yes, you may, brother. You can say
right.
whatever you want me to say.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I did get a little deeper. Got did some not like I said, we didn't sacrifice nothing, but like some sex magic. Did a couple of that. Um, drank blood. Drink each other's blood.
Mm.
Along with the other stuff. Like it was just more like of an add to than a take away from.
Oh, okay. So it went a little deeper, and
Mm-hmm.
like he said something pretty would be considered wild for people is like drinking blood, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
which is definitely very, how you want to say, can be perceived as occultic or
Oh
just
yeah,
straight
yeah,
up
definitely. Yeah,
evil, demonic, and
100%.
um, But I know we spoke about this off camera, and so I want you to elaborate on to people like what was it like when you did that? What what was the experience like when you had consumed that substance?
Yeah, like you think it's different than what you think it would be like, but it's something does happen. It's a you can feel it, like it zings, if that makes any sense. Trying to think if there's anything else that people would understand, like a comparison to. It's yeah, it has effects. You can feel it. You can feel it.
You can feel the effects, and like effects as in what type of effects are we talking about?
Uh, like it zings. It feels warm. Um, it's kind of a little euphoric. Um, from just from reading about it, that the elites, the adrenochrome stuff, they torture people or animals, and then they drink the blood because the fear and the adrenaline and stuff is in the blood, and it's got a drug like effect when you drink it.
Mhm.
Um, we weren't we weren't doing the adrenochrome, but I assume it's if you're doing different whatever the person that's the blood came from, whatever you're doing at the time, I guess it would have an effect. But yeah, it does have an effect.
Now, was there a connection you felt when you had consumed it?
Yeah, it creates a hard soul connection.
creates a heart soul connection. Okay.
And it's yeah.
And why is that?